I met Huey and Bobby initially in 1967, around end of January, first part of February, when there was a planning meeting to bring Malcolm X's widow to the Bay Area, and I was asked by the organization at that time to do the artwork for that event. And so I went to the meeting, and they said they were going to talk to some brothers, come over to do security. And when they came over, that was Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. So it was after that meeting that I asked how could I become a member. And Huey and Bobby gave me their phone numbers, and I used to call Huey in the morning, and I used to catch the bus from here to Oakland and go by Huey's house. And he would show me around the neighborhoods. We'd go by Bobby's house. And that was my initial involvement with the Black Panther Party. All across the country, there was this desire about a lot of young folks who were frustrated in the African American community, in the inner cities, in the South, everywhere, in relationship to the abuse, the bigotry, and particularly the police abuse of murders and being justified all over the country, in relationship to young African American men being killed and shot and murdered, shot in the back, maybe running from the scene, petty crime, or getting into conflicts with the police and being abused, and people seeing it in the neighborhood, how it was being handled and not handled in a professional way. So it was high levels of frustrations. And so, there were those, we respected Dr. King in the nonviolence, but there was also those who didn't want to turn the other cheek and wanted to carry it on in another way. Initially, I was worked on a newspaper. I did throughout my entire being in the party. I worked on a newspaper. But initially, I was cut and paste when the paper started developing, laying out the paper. Then I became in charge of the newspaper, about the second, third, fourth issue of it, and I would start doing artwork and stuff for the paper. But it was the design elements that went into it and stuff that I learned at City College that helped me in relationship to putting the paper together and stuff like that. People could see in the artwork what they maybe perhaps didn't grasp in the language or the communication, or through dialogue or something like that, or through an essay, which a lot of folks didn't like to read, or wouldn't. Then the African American community in the inner cities wasn't really a reading community, but they learned through observation and participation more so. And so and Huey and me should talk about that. So they wanted to do photographs and images that could tell a story immediately, so people could get the gist of what was being meant or discussed or trying to get across, as opposed to reading the whole long article, a paper or something like that. There were some styles that I had that evolved and developed what I was in City College, but they weren't considered commercial styles. So I had to apply my work in a commercial way in order to have a portfolio, so when you went to look for a job or so to a potential employer during that time, you would have a portfolio that was representative of what was going on commercially in the field. But I got involved with the activism and got involved with the Black Panther Party, so when I got into the party, those were the styles that I came back to, were the ones that weren't commercial, and they were kind of played off of woodcuts. I kind of like woodcuts, but at the same time they took so long to do, so I would just try to develop a woodcut style using pen and ink, markers, brush and ink, those kind of materials that I had available to work with, and out of that evolved and developed the whole visual style that you see of my work. It has to be able to expose the issues of concern to human beings, people who are being oppressed, who are being locked out of the system, and it has to be able to communicate with people. It has to be able to be a reflection of their desires and their interests and concerns, if you want to be relevant in relationship to change. It has to be a language that communicates with people, that people can, when they hear it or see it, they can get a sense of what was going on it can reinforce maybe their feelings or thinkings about ideals or what they have in mind, or it could be a guide to action. That the Black Panther Party was hoodlums, thugs, and were violent, and all they did was carry guns, which is far from the truth. Everybody in the Black Panther Party didn't carry guns. Only those who were signed to carry guns. And when we did carry guns, it was legally within the framework of the law and the Constitution during that time. And also only to protect our property and our houses and ourselves against those predators, government predators and agent provocateurs who were out there. So it was in that context that the guns were carried and legally done. So the misconception there is that we were just thugs and outlaws, which is far from the truth. We had many social programs like, for example, breakfast program, health clinics, and all those things. And so the misconception is that people don't realize until they hear you. They didn't realize these things. When you present them to them, then they have another perspective in relationship to what the Black Panther Party was really about. It was about community service. We challenged it because we had our own paper. We told our own story from our own perspective. That was the whole idea from starting our own newspaper, giving our own story, and instead of the misinformation that people were getting from the mainstream press, it gave us the opportunity to tell our own story about events and concerns all across the country, and in solidarity information that came from around the world. Was in solidarity with those struggles that existed and went on as well. Just took a position, enlightened and informed people and educated them about their basic human rights as it related to quality of life issues, and also it also transcended the narrow perspective of just being and expanding and being in solidarity with people's struggles around the world and other folks in this country as well, and being an inspiration for those who were looking for somehow to get involved and to be a part of the movement for change in this country. The success of the party was the very fact that it lasted as long as it did in the belly of the beast, but at the same time, it was our being able to expose and educate people to what the government wasn't doing as regards to the breakfast program, feeding more hungry children in the United States government, which was true. Health clinics, talking about preventative health care, as opposed to just the things that people go to doctors for after they get seriously ill, but talking about how to deal with preventative checkups and having free health clinics where they could come in and have these examinations done for free with accredited professional doctors and nurses being staffed at the clinics and in the mobile vans and what we had to offer. We had, and also the fact that we had these free busing to prison programs to take the loved ones of those who were incarcerated to visit those who, on an ongoing basis. So with those kinds of programs and stuff is a part of the legacy and the foundation of what the Black Panther Party. We were young, and so I think our youthfulness in relationship to the average age is from 15, 16 and a half, little Bobby Hutton, very first member, up until about 22 years of age. Then you had Eldridge and Bobby and Elder Big Man Howard, who were considered the old men of the party, 28 and 30 years of age. So I think that our youth, and yet understanding that we had a diverse amount of people who came into the Black Panther Party, who came from many different backgrounds, merging and making all that gel together. Then there was the COINTELPRO, the government who was able to exploit our weaknesses, our limitations, with agent provocateurs, to create conditions in the party to pit people against each other, and to create situations where there were party members purged and expelled who should not have been because of these COINTELPRO operations by the government. So it was our limitations in the in relationship to in our youthfulness, and some of those things that also were a part of our shortcomings. You have to be always aware that the government is going to always anything that's becomes a thorn in the side, or anything that has a potential to rallying people in relationship to transforming the thinking of society and moving in relationship to how the government treats its citizens, and people are willing to stand up and just make a sacrifice for that, then that means that you're gonna have to be prepared to understand that there's going to be some kind of reaction on the part of the government.